Welcome to the Diatom Web Academy. It's great to see everyone. And this is just a few announcements here. We don't have any Diatom Web Academy sessions scheduled for the summer, but we do have coming up some other events. Gosh, now I lost my screen. A couple of courses in Iowa. Ecology and systematics of algae will be offered from June 20th to July 15th by Kalina Manoilov. You can still sign up for that at the link that David is going to drop right now. Also, the ecology and systematics of diatoms will again be offered after a pause for a couple of years to have a live course that will be May 23rd to June 17th. This course has been one of those long-standing courses, and if you're able to make it, please go. It's a wonderful opportunity to be in the field and talk diatoms. And then upcoming, there's a large conference, JASM, which is many different societies, including the Society for Freshwater Science. Julianne Heinlein will be at the Taxonomy Fair, and you can talk taxonomy and bring samples on all sorts of organisms at the Taxonomy Fair. So for today, Sylvia Lee is going to lead our Taxonomic Certification Committee. We've been meeting now for a couple of years to think through and develop a level 2 species exam. And we have now a kind of a beta test, and Sylvia is going to describe what we've been trying to come up with and ask you for your feedback. So really appreciate everyone being here, and we want to hear from you and have this be a really interactive session. So here's Sylvia to talk about the program.
Thanks, Sarah. And hi, everyone. Welcome to the Diatom Web Academy. I'm Sylvia Lee. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm fortunate to be joining you today from the traditional lands of the Apalachicola in the Panhandle region of Northern Florida. I first want to acknowledge my colleagues in the Diatom Taxonomic Certification Committee, David Burge, Jan Stevenson, Julianne Heinlein, Mark Edlin, Melissa Vaccarino, and Sarah Spalding, as well as Mike Broomall, who is the Society for Freshwater Science Taxonomic Certification Program coordinator. It's been a very big team effort by all of these folks to develop and implement the certification exams. And I work at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency in Washington, D.C. It's based there. And it's my duty to inform you of these lovely disclaimers. The views in this presentation are those of myself and my co-authors. Please do not construe the information to represent EPA policy or endorsement of products or entities. Also, EPA does not have editorial control over the information found on non-EPA websites. What we're simply trying to do today is provide information that may be useful to anyone interested in taxonomic certification and to describe our efforts to improve the science of diatom-based monitoring and biological assessments. The most important message I hope you take away with you today is that your feedback is incredibly important to us, and we are open to your ideas and suggestions to help us develop a fair and useful certification exam for diatom taxonomy at the species level to support water monitoring and biological assessment. The certification program has origins going back to data analyses that showed inconsistent taxonomy in large regional and national data sets, including EPA's National Lakes Assessment and National Rivers and Streams Assessments. Both of these assessments are under the umbrella of EPA's National Aquatic Resource Surveys, a program that monitors and publishes reports and data on the condition of the nation's waters in the US. However, after finding taxonomic data issues, Diatom data that were collected in the national surveys were either removed from EPA's website or not published. So later at the North American Diatom Symposium, our beloved NADS meeting back in 2017, a working group proposed that one way we can address these issues is by developing a taxonomic certification program similar to ones already existing for macroinvertebrate taxonomy. This working group started out very large because many people wanted to help, but sometimes it's challenging to work with a group that is very big. So the working group held an election to select members of the Diatom Taxonomic Certification Committee, or the TCC. Since then, we, the TCC, have been meeting on a regular basis, and we successfully obtained grants in 2019 and 2020 from the Society for Freshwater Science Long Range Planning Committee. These grants were very important to give us the startup funding for contractor and student hours to work on organizing images and creating collages for the level 1 and 2 exams. Now we are working on volunteer hours of the TCC members on top of our other work responsibilities. So progress has not been very fast, but we are doing our best. And if anyone is interested in helping us out, we really want to hear from you. We presented the level 1 certification exam at the National Monitoring Conference, which is a national forum for all sectors involved in water quality monitoring. And we found a lot of support and interest in certification, but also other aspects of working with Diatom data for monitoring and assessment. And certification is one of the many tools we can use to forge effective use of diatoms in assessments. Another tool we have is what we're doing right now, today, the Diatom Web Academy, by communicating diatom research and bringing the community together from all over the world by hosting free webinars and recording them. We don't intend to use certification to make things harder. We're trying to make the science better. According to Mark Edlund, it's all about the science. So if any of this feels like it's making your life harder, we really want to hear from you and work with you to make improvements to the certification process. As I mentioned, there's already a level 1 exam. Certification at level 1 indicates an up-to-date working knowledge of North American inland diatom genera based on diatoms.org. So level 1 is certification at the genus level, not species level. You can find more information about level 1 certification on diatoms.org, where we have a webinar similar to this one we're doing now. And so far, we have 23 level 1 certified diatom practitioners. And you can find their names and other information on the Stroud website, which is also the website for macroinvertebrate taxonomic certification of Society for Freshwater Science. And maybe that number of certified practitioners seems a bit low, but that's probably because the community has been waiting very patiently for a species level exam. So what does it mean to be level 2 certified? The TCC proposes that with level 2 Diatom Taxonomic Certification indicates knowledge of variation in diatom morphology within a species, morphological operational taxonomic units or mOTUs, and basic concepts of diatom nomenclature. And regarding mOTUs, I'll just make a note here that the phrase OTU is being used in a specific context, which is in the context of monitoring and assessment of diatoms using a voucher flora approach, and mostly in a North American context. So in this case, the mOTU is the unit of enumeration assigned a code name for a project. And later the mOTU codes are linked to published scientific names if possible, or project provisional names if it turns out to be an undescribed taxon. The mOTU represents project level morphological species concepts before taxonomy can be finalized for a specific monitoring or assessment project. And what we intend with level 2 certification is to indicate a practical base of knowledge for using a voucher flora to identify inland diatoms at the species level. And the primary goal of this exam is to acknowledge a practitioner's proficiency in the skills used to distinguish mOTUs and identify specimens that should not be included in an mOTU without further investigation. Skills used to assign formal scientific names to mOTUs using diatoms.org as a reference, and an understanding of basic rules of botanical nomenclature. And like the level 1 certification, level 2 certification is valid for 5 years. So you can go to diatoms.org to find links to study materials and more information. Particularly this tab on for practitioners in the header of the diatoms.org website will be most useful. It has not only information about taxonomic certification, but what's a voucher flora and how to measure diatoms, how to process diatom samples, and many other useful information for working with diatoms. So for the level 2 exam, these are some of the basic logistics. It's open notes. You can use any references available to you during the exam, except for another person. You have 3 hours to complete 3 sections, and these logistics are subject to change depending on community feedback, your feedback. So the number of questions, section 1, there's 60 of them. In section 2, there's 30, and in section 3, there's 10, for a total of 100 questions. And we'll go through the question types in all 3 of those sections. With a 95% score, you pass, you become certified. If you get close on your first try and you get at least 90%, you can resit the exam for free. And we updated diatoms.org to complement the exam. Let me provide you with a link to this beta demo version of the exam. It's this link to class marker, which is our exam platform. And there you'll find 23 questions in the same order. And that would be different in the real exam, which will be randomized questions. But for the purpose of obtaining your feedback, trying to make that a bit easier, we elected to not randomize these questions. And there, if you had gone to the link earlier, there were 24 questions, but we removed one of them because we found issues with one of them. So section 1, the questions here in section 1, there's 60 of them, will look like this. You'll have 3 to 5 images of diatom specimens within a morphological size series. So this would be one morphological operational taxonomic unit on the left side here. And then on the right, you have a single isolated specimen. And the question is true or false, this specimen fits within this mOTU. So you would respond to the question based on the morphological range variation shown by the images that are grouped together here. Do not consider species or morphological concepts beyond those illustrated in this plate in the question. For example, you will not want to use taxonomic keys, other voucher floras, publications, or your personal collections, which may show different size ranges and morphological variation. So the purpose is to imagine that you're in a project using a specific voucher flora, and this is your mOTU, and your job is to include the specimen in this OTU or not include it. A little handy tip here in class marker, you can see these little gray flags. You're able to go back and review and change your answers to previous questions. So it can be useful to select this bookmark and then it'll turn blue, as you can see here. And then at the top of the exam, you'll see a link to see all questions. And then this window will pop up and you can easily go back to that question that you had bookmarked. All right, section 2. In section 2, it will look similar to section 1 because we'll be showing a size series as well that we, the TCC, considered to belong to a single taxon. And these taxa are linked to species in diatoms.org. So your response will be to enter the formal scientific name of that taxon. And each taxon is found on diatoms.org at the species section. You can access through the header. And to try to make this easier, we're working on having the ability to download a species list so that it would be easier to refer to that on like a Word document or something to look at all the species names. And in this section, you only have to enter the genus name, the specific epithet, and if it's applicable, the interspecific name, which would be like the variety or subspecies or form. So one of the ways you can do this is to use that list on diatoms.org in the species section. And when you mouse over one of the names, you'll get a little pop-up window with the guide points for that particular species. And you can get the full name instead of the abbreviated one you see here on that full list. So you can copy and paste this part of the name. And we recommend either doing this or using a species list. And in this section, you don't need to worry about Kutzing 1844, just the name, genus, species, and if applicable, like the variety. The exam administrator will be looking for issues related to spelling, but since we're recommending to copy and paste, in most cases, we will not accept incorrect spelling. So please be careful. Section 3. We're almost there. The questions in section 3 are about nomenclature. And this part is multiple choice. You'll either be asked to select the one complete and correct scientific name. So here's an example here, question 18. Or the other kind of question is determine the one correct Bayesianym from these 4 options, example here. And this does not require you to be, super up to date on literature or know the history or literature of a specific species. What you only need to do is go to diatoms.org and know how to find this information about nomenclature. So you can go to a specific species page and find the correct authority for each species. In this case, for Planethidium abbreviatum, you have Reimer in parentheses, Potapova 2012. And so then you can find that answer in this section. And then say you need to find the Bayesianym of this taxon. What you can do then is click on the original description, and then it will bring you to this section of the page, of that species page, and you can find the Bayesianym here. Maybe I'll pause there for a minute, see if there's any burning questions. I see that Sarah is responding, so I'll just keep going and we'll have discussion at the end. So we completed the information about the 3 sections and the question types. So this is just some additional general information about taking a certification exam. It's through an online system. You can schedule an exam at the website for the Stroud Water Research Center. And this is recommended to schedule an exam by sending in a interest form online. So if you click on that link to schedule an exam, you'll find some information and you'll find a link to this interest form to choose from a list of upcoming exams, or if you can't make one of those, you can request a testing date that's available to you. And the Diatom exams are fully online. We don't mail you specimens like the macroinvertebrate exams. So it's not necessary to find a testing center. Although we do have events like the Society for Freshwater Science meetings or the North American Diatom Symposium, where we can have in-person exams made available. So with this testing option, you should, it's recommended that you allow 3 to 4 weeks of lead time. This is because like the TCC members, the Mike Broomall, the SFS Taxonomic Certification Program Coordinator, has lots of other duties, especially during summer field season. So it's really best to schedule a time with him, and you'll have to submit payment for the exam, which is going to be determined for level 2 based on your feedback and figuring out kind of what are the resources that go into administering a 3-hour exam. And during that exam, when you're taking it online, Mike, the coordinator, will monitor you via the webcam and by Zoom. So you should make sure to have a computer that has a webcam and be able to run Zoom on that computer. So as I said in the beginning, we really welcome your questions about the level 2 exam. We want to work with you to make this a fair and reasonable exam to support biological monitoring and assessment. Please send your feedback and suggestions. How did the demo exam go for you? The email is there, Diatom TCC @gmail.com. I'm checking that account. And again, just your input is so important for the next steps of getting this certification exam out there, making sure we have a good format. We will revise it according to your input, and we'll be testing the exam by sending out a full exam, the 100-question exam, to folks to get an additional round of feedback. So that's all I have for right now, and happy to have more discussion with folks. I see the chat is very active, so let's chat.
Sylvia, there are a few questions about recertification, and I'm not really sure about that specifically. So do you have, I know that you need to have a current level 1 certification to take the level 2 exam, but how does it work with recertification? Do you have to start all over again in 5 years?
Actually, I don't think we require that you have level 1 certification to take level 2. Yeah. You can skip level 1. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then another comment, what is the cost for each, the certification and recertification?
Yes. So I think the best place to go to find that information is on the Stroud website. So go to diatoms.org. I'm still sharing my screen. Go to practitioners, resources for practitioners, Diatom Taxonomic Certification. And we updated this page with both level 1 and level 2 information. So if you go down here, you'll find a link. There's a little blurb about cost. And then there's a detailed table of exam fees at the Stroud website. And we're still, you won't find level 2 there because it's not a finalized exam. So we'll keep you posted on what the cost will be for level 2.
Great. And then Sylvia, there's a comment about is there a class or course that offers training for these exams? And then you take the test at the end of the class. We actually did that for level 1, but we haven't talked about that for level 2.
Yeah.
Other comments?
Well, in my opinion, you know, it would be awesome if, you know, we could have a class at Iowa Lakeside Lab for certification. And certainly that Iowa Lakeside Lab class is a good one to learn all about species level identification. And previously for the level 1 genus exam, we did that with the students on the genus level certification. But I have to say from that experience, it is a little bit stressful for the students to have that. It was optional. It did not affect their grade in the class, but it is a lot to learn, even though it's in 4 weeks. Perhaps because this group was students, and it's some of them, it's very kind of the first introduction to diatoms. So doing that certification exam at the end was a bit stressful. So, you know, we have webinars like this, and we also have, let me share with you this webinar link on nomenclature. We had one about diatom nomenclature that Marina Potapova did a webinar about that when we first started the Diatom Web Academy. So things like that are resources we hope are useful for folks interested in certification.
I posted some notes in the chat from someone who took the demo beta test the other day and gave us some feedback. And I just wanted to comment on the nomenclature. This person said, I definitely found out I'm lazy / sloppy with nomenclature, happy face. And I know that people often tense up about nomenclature. You know, it's dry, it's awful, it's boring. And I think that, well, I disagree for one, but because one of the things is nomenclature has some really clear rules, and understanding it will actually make your life easier and a lot more fun to understand how names have changed. And there are clear rules about names and authors of names. And while this test doesn't require you to know all those ins and outs, we hoped that it encourages you to try to start learning those, because it'll help you in your work and in your studies.
Thanks, Sarah. I agree.
Allison said, I took the demo and loved that nomenclature was included. Yay. It's easy to forget, but so important to understand the often complicated nomenclature changes. Thanks for that, Allison. Here us comments. Hi, Sylvia. I prefer questions in order rather than randomized. It would help us answer questions in a better way rather than going back and forth between different formats, as it's more about testing taxonomic skills. Can you comment on the randomization and why we do that, Sylvia?
Yeah, you know what? If I'm reading the question correctly, it says rather than going back and forth between different formats, hoping you could give us clarification here on, do you mean the formats among sections 1, 2, and 3? You know, that would be quite difficult to have random questions from each of those sections mixed into the exam. But what I meant to try to describe is that in each section, the questions will be randomized, but you'll see section 1 first, so all the same question type in section 1, and then section 2 will have all the same question type about entering the names, and then section 3 will be the same multiple choice format. And the reason that we felt the need to have randomized questions is just, you know, because we have potentially many people taking these exams, and we do want it to be fair and, you know, make sure there's, you know, no sharing of the questions ahead of time, and just be able to have fair exams so that, you know, we have a pool of questions to draw from for each section, and folks will get a random subset of those in their individual tests. But you will see all of section 1 first, section 2, and then section 3. So hopefully not as much hopping around in different formats as you may be thinking, but please do clarify. Let me know if I'm interpreting that incorrectly. Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, so here I said that it's clarified, and I'm just adding that, yeah, just so you know, there's a giant pool of questions. So each exam is made especially for you and drawn so that if you come back to take the exam at another date or recertify, you get a whole different set of questions.
Right.
Kyle asked, do you predict EPA will start to require certification on monitoring contracts?
You know, it's, how should I say this? I think, Sarah, can you remind me if for the NERSA program, there was a requirement for level 1 certification?
Yeah, so let's see. So NERSA is the National Rivers and Streams Assessment Program. That's EPA program. There was not, I don't think there's been a requirement for certification. We have had a requirement for using a developing and using a voucher flora. So incorporating, you know, we're trying to move toward incorporating these practices that help people make sure that these data are comparable, and that we know that an individual at least has the capability of making correct identifications. I hope I said that right, Sylvia. I know there's some, you can never ensure that somebody's going to do things right. I make mistakes all the time, but we're trying to develop a process by which you can, it's really the process of making an identification and ensuring that people have some basic training and familiarity with diatoms to do that.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. And you know that I hope we can convey that this is meant to be a resource for practitioners and environmental consultants. We hope it's a way to show that you indeed have these amazing skills and expertise, you know, to be able to contribute to these agreements, and that, you know, your expertise is acknowledged.
David adds that he's seen a state level call for proposals that favors analysts that have level 1 certification. So perhaps that's where we're at, that could be favored but not required. Any other comments from people? Have people, has anyone taken the test exam and have other feedback on the nature of the questions? How many people have taken the exam, the beta test? Raise your virtual hand if you've taken the beta test. Okay, Diane, Sarah, Sylvia.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for, and please, yeah, drop in your comments, or if you wanted to send them anonymously too. Do we have a way to do that, Sylvia?
Can they do it through diatoms.org?
You can provide feedback on the contact us box on diatoms.org. That shows your email, but you could go use somebody else's email if you really want to be anonymous. Kalina, thank you. She says she's going to take the exam as soon as she enters her grades. Good, Kalina. We really value your feedback and your students as well, because I know you have been training a large pool of students. So as you take it, hi, as folks take the exam, give us feedback, because we will drop questions or modify them, or change them to be able, because we really want to reflect your input. You know, whether you have been doing this for decades or whether you're brand new to working with diatoms, it's really helpful to us to find out, what do we need to do to provide you with resources for learning, or what's a better way to guide the next generation in being able to learn about diatoms, and about, in this process where we're trying to be able to develop data sets that are compatible. Sylvia talked about that at the beginning, that we had this problem that we could not merge data because it's dependent on the lab where it came from. So that's our goal, and we hope that we're able to do that and really keep our field relevant, both in this assessment realm, and as much as we can to be true to the science of the field. So David Williams, are you still here? I don't see him.
I see him.
Where, yeah, do you, I'd like to invite David to comment from your point of view, if you don't mind.
No, of course. Sorry, I had my laptop stuck up there, so if I left it where it was, you'd see me sideways on, which looks a bit peculiar. Only because I've got a massive screen up here for actually watching football, not for watching you guys. But, all right, I think it's a great idea. That's why I wanted to listen. It sounds really good stuff. I mean, I quite enjoy these sort of things. I don't think we have a comparable kind of thing here. We do this. We're just starting to do this thing on a NERC training initiative, which is a slightly different way of interacting with people. It's well, we get people to actually, we get people to interact through the websites that are there. Your own one, the Diatoms of North America, and one from the United Kingdom. So it's a slightly different approach we take. There's no certificates or anything after it, but it's purely just a training exercise for those people who want to use diatom identifications. So I think it's great. That's why I dropped in, just to see how you guys were organising, how you're doing things.
Yeah, great. Thanks, David. I really appreciate your input and suggestions to us of how we put this together, because we have been, it's taken a while, and we're kind of making it up as we go, to be what is fair and how do we get to this goal of being able to represent the science in a way of in terms of assessment, and we realize those two things can be different.
Yeah, you're extremely brave putting something in on nomenclature. After all these years, I don't know how I feel about it. I probably shouldn't say. But again, it's a great idea to have it in there. We don't do that, and we specifically don't, or I don't do that, specifically don't do that for all sorts of reasons. Mostly because, I don't know, can I say this? Most people hate nomenclature.
Oh yeah, I know that. And there's a question here. What was the idea behind the nomenclature question? Because some are solvable by logic alone. Like you can't have something amended before it was described, and other questions give two different plausible dates, and that needs to be looked up. So the rationale was really to kind of, more than anything, get people to start paying attention to it. And these aren't any kind of tricky nomenclature. It's not the ones that are horrible and sticky, and David, some of them takes us years to figure out what's going on. There's nothing like that here. The nomenclature questions in this exam are really, go look it up on diatoms.org and pay attention. That's the limit of this. And maybe if people start to get comfortable with that, they'll dig in a little bit further to understanding how names change. So that's the idea behind it, and that we do it in a pretty simplistic step, just trying to invite people in.
I think one of the things that's going to happen in the future, I'm only half keeping my my attention on it, is that the nomenclature traces the names and how entities, how entities get called, why they're called what they're called. The difficult part is how do the concepts change? I mean, Ehrenberg's version of a particular binomial would be different to what I have. So I think there's some very clever people working out these ontologies, how you can go from one concept to another, and that's quite crucial, I think, in terms of identifying the specimen you have in front of you.
Yeah.
So we have two strands that are changing, and that's quite a nice interaction there. But I guess that the online sites, your own Diatom North America, Diatom the UK, really help with pushing that side of it, as opposed to trying to work through, as I said elsewhere, some books you can't pick up, let alone taking the field with you.
Right. Yeah. One of our observations is the names that people provide greatly reflect the resources that they used.
Sure.
So if we can provide people with a common resource that is clear, that goes a long way towards getting both the concept, the limit of the range, like how, those, as you said, those boundaries between one taxon and another are one of those really tricky spots.
Sure.
Anybody else? People have some other comments about getting grades submitted.
It's that time of the year.
Time of the year. Yeah. So what's my gas station snack? I put it down there. It was I love the real Coca-Cola that has sugar in it instead of fake sugar. It's called Mexican Coke. I think it's made in Mexico and imported to the US. It's good. If that's lost on anyone, we started off entering your gas station snack in the chat. So you haven't done that yet. You still have the opportunity. Okay. Anybody else want to give a comment, drop a comment in the chat, or bring up a point to discuss? If we don't hear from you, we're going to take that as being that you're approving what we're putting forth as an exam, and we won't have your comments unless you give them to us. So, any suggestions about whether these are good questions or bad questions, or you want to see something else, this is really the time to do it. So we really appreciate your feedback in helping us to develop the exam.
And perhaps this is all a work in progress. Perhaps you have ideas now that you've seen this level 2, where we might go with a level 3 certification exam. Did it inspire you or give you any thoughts about another certification level? So we'd be interested in all of those ideas.
Or maybe we don't need a level 3, and what we need is to develop something else in terms of training or building out the flora of a particular region, or what is going to help you be a better diatomist. And I think another thing that at least I am really concerned about is keeping our field vital and growing, or maybe it's not going to grow, keep it from dying as funds get smaller and smaller. It's our community, and I think that we have strength in numbers in terms of bringing the importance of these organisms that are relevant to aquatic, special aquatic places across the globe that are mostly ignored. And it's us, we need to speak for the diatoms.
Hear, hear.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining today. It's great to see so many folks, and stay in touch.
Thanks, everyone.